Hey, what's up, everyone? I am back from 90s Con. It's been a minute since I've been able to sit down and make any content, but here I am. Anyway, welcome back to 8-Bit Generation X. I'm still Eric Warner, and I have tales of my adventure. My son and I went down to New Jersey from where I live, just north of Boston. It's about a 4.5 hour drive. We flew down there for what's called 90s Con. Stars from the past, Mark Henry, Al Snow, Eric Bischoff, the Headbangers, the Berserker, Savio Vega, Farouk, Ahmed Johnson, and more. I'm probably leaving names out, but got to meet them all, meet and greets, handshakes, conversations, autographs. We had a blast. Got to go into the steel cage. Me and my son mess around in that, took some pictures. I dropped him with a clothesline, smashed his face into the steel. Now, it wasn't the blue cage from the 90s that I was hoping, but it was a steel cage nonetheless. It was a great indie show put on after ISWP, Tommy Fierro's promotion. It's a great organization. If you're in that area, check out anything that he does. Anyway, the highlight of the trip was there was a wrestling trivia contest. I've been known to dominate the occasional wrestling trivia contest. Way back in 2009, I was in Texas for WrestleMania 25, and I got an opportunity to participate in a wrestling trivia. Was not that organized. It was kind of just get up and you're with a bunch of different participants and they give you a buzzer. It was a nice stage at WrestleMania 25, fan access. Very elaborate. A big championship belt that the more questions you got right, you got entered in raffle ticket wise. I didn't win that belt, which I'm bummed. But however, the best part of the story is most people get up there and after a while, you wouldn't get any questions right and they would shuffle you off because there's a huge line and they have other people come on. But if you answer questions, you got to stay. Well, question after question after question after question. I think I rattled off 7 or 8 questions, rapid fire. And then whoever was hosting at the time came out and was like, we're going to dig deep and have a hard question. And they dug deep into the bag, and I answered the question right off the top of my head. So they said, congratulations. We'll put in your name in 10 times for the raffle, but you have to get up and leave and let other people have a try. Of course, I look at the line, and there are little kids and older people and some people that were really eager to play, so I had no problem with that. But anyway, so it's been since 2009 that I was actually in a real wrestling trivia contest. So fast forward to this past weekend, I'm at 90s Con in New Jersey, and in order to qualify for the Jeopardy round, all the contestants were given paper and with it, like an answer sheet, and you had to. They gave out 20 questions over the mic. You know, who was this? And there were people walking around making sure that no one cheated. There was no Googling, no nothing, no phones at all. And the top 3 scores went to the Jeopardy round. There was also a tiebreaker question where I didn't do that well on. And, named the 8, whatever. And luckily, I secured one of the spots. Again, I was worried because out of the 3 finalists, I had the lowest score. The other 2 people scored way up, like amazing. I was like, wow, they barely got anything wrong. So going into the Jeopardy, I was excited to be part of the Jeopardy game, but I also was worried that maybe I had bitten off more than I can chew. So it was like an hour or 2 before the Jeopardy game started, in between the initial round and the Jeopardy game. So of course, we go around, look for more autographs, look at the merch that they had, and just kind of mingle. This convention was very laid back. I was kind of nervous being like, well, if I'm not at the table and paying for these, this person's time, they shouldn't be I shouldn't be talking to them. It wasn't it. Eric Bischoff was just like walking around, and you end up in a conversation with them. Ken Shamrock, I went up to his table an hour after we first met and just started talking, and we talked for a while. I talked about my son's karate, and he got all into martial art conversation as well. But yeah, it was very laid back. So it was easy just to walk around and kill time. But then it came time for Jeopardy. And we played, and it was a mixed bag of trivia. Everyone was kind of hoping it was 90s wrestling trivia because it was 90s con, but it ended up just being a mixed bag, and it was right into my wheelhouse. I ended up winning with a score of just under 20,000 points. The next person, after they answered the final Jeopardy question, and they got it right, so they doubled their points, ended up with 4,800. The next person might have just was north of 0. And also we played with the ISPW women's champion, Vicky, as well, but she only answered a few questions and then realized that she had to get ready for her next match. So that was interesting. But I have cut down the entire Jeopardy show into all the questions that I answered correctly. This whole show would have been 35 minutes long if I was to show the entire video. So I just thought I would show the questions that I got correct and elaborate and maybe explain how I knew this. All right. So let's check out question 1 and play along at home and put into the comments if you knew the answer, because I think some of these are easy. For those of us that are a bit older, you're probably going to know these. My friend Barry, I hope you're watching. I know that you're going to get a couple of these without issue. So question 1, let's check it out.
This is Jeopardy.
Nice intro right there. So I'm the lemon. Oh, this guy's going to break down all the categories. I definitely did well with the wrestlers who sing. I wasn't surprised. I mean, I was surprised.
Choose another clue.
So there's Vicky, the women's champ, selecting.
This Hall of Fame manager was the lead singer of the Gentrys, best known for their 1965 hit Keep On Dancing. 11.
Oh, that's the month of the South, Jimmy Hart.
And there's my first. And of course, I struggle with the Who Is Jeopardy format. But let's pause right there. The answer was the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. And I knew this way back in the 80s. I'm going to credit my buddy Barry, who I mentioned a few minutes ago. His father, the Big E, Earl, is a music historian. And growing up in the 80s and early 90s, hanging out at his house, he was always talking about old music. A lot of the Rolling Stones, the Doors, the Beatles. He had a man cave with all this old music memorabilia, Three Stooges. He had a pool table. We hung out. But he would hang with us, and he would always talk about old music. And while we were that age, we were obviously watching wrestling all the time. And the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, would be on TV managing whatever heel he was managing, jumping around with his megaphone. And he would always say, that guy, he used to actually be in a band, the Gentrys, blah, blah, blah. For some reason, I had it in the back of my mind, they were called the Turtles. I don't know why. There's probably a band called the Turtles. So a long time in my mind, they were the Turtles. So I'm surprised I didn't get this wrong. But the fact that the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, sang so many songs throughout the 80s and into the early 90s, I just knew this. You know, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. And that got me on the board. And they're very lenient with the who is and what is, because this isn't real Jeopardy. So, boom, I'm on the board.
Rockin' Robin to Jake Roberts, be specific. 11.
That's me. All right, so that got cut out, and I apologize. So that question, these are wrestlers, how are they related? And it was Jake the Snake Roberts and Rockin' Robin. The answer that they were looking for, which I got, was what is a half sibling? And they said be specific. I was able to get that. Now, I knew that somehow reading the Pro Wrestling Illustrated and not like the WWF at the time magazines, but those other independent magazines, they always kind of made these little references that you knew. And I know in 1988 into 1989, Sam Houston, Rockin' Robin, and Jake the Snake Roberts were all part of the WWF at the time, and they were half siblings. If any of you went out of your way and watched that Dark Side of the Ring for Jake the Snake Roberts, you'll find a little bit about his family life in it. It's out there. But those half siblings were all, they may have all appeared at the 1989 Royal Rumble. It's possible, but they were definitely all into the WWEF at the same time during 88, 89. And so I just knew that, and boom, back on the board. Hope the editing gets a little better.
Gimmicks for 1,000. In early 1991, the Mariner, portrayed by
Oh, so this was 1,000 bad gimmicks.
attacked Rick Martel, Dino Bravo, and Earthquake with headbutts before disappearing, never to be seen again. 11.
Brutus. Who is Brutus the Barber Beefcake?
So I got that one, and I added the who is. So again, in 1990 maybe, 91, yeah, the Mariner. He only came out a few times wearing a weird mask, almost like a catcher's chest protector. You could Google image it. And it was just a way, I guess, for Brutus the Barber Beefcake to get some work. Because if you don't remember, this is around the time maybe of that parasailing accident, and he could go out there and just do a little something, probably for a favor as a paycheck. He couldn't come back full time, so he just did these run-ins. It went nowhere. I don't even believe the announcers ever said the name Mariner. That kind of just came out in lore, and it was so outlandish. It just stuck in the back of my mind. And I don't know. I'm partial to Brutus Beefcake. I know a bunch of funny stories about him. In summer of '97, I had the privilege of knocking some drinks back with him and Hogan. I was a kid back then, so I'm very partial, and anything Hogan Beefcake really sticks in the back of my mind. So right away, Lemon, which is me on this game, is coming out to a nice lead.
I'll stick with Guy Gimmicks for 800, please.
Bad gimmicks, 800.
Former WWE Tag Team Champion Julie and Bill Neidhart put on a yellow mask to portray this character, while the commentators did an Abbott and Costello routine. 11.
Who is who?
Who is who?
There it is. All right, got that one as well. Thought that was pretty easy. Maybe I was just quick on the buzzer, but poor Jim the Anvil Neidhart, right? They had nothing to do with him for a little while, and they stuck him under this mask, and it was just, his name was Who. So obviously, who's this Who? And that old school comedy routine, who's on first and all that. It's almost like Vince and the other agents backstage, producers, just had an inside joke going at poor Jim's expense. This didn't last long. It was 2-3 weeks at the most. Could have even been done at one TV taping, to be honest with you, and they spread it out for a couple different weeks. But it was definitely the anvil under the mask. You can't mistake in that torso. But yeah, there it is. I'm surprised more people didn't know that one, but I wonder how you guys are doing at home. Please comment in.
Wrestlers who can sing 400.
All right, Russell, you could sing 400.
Well, not his best known theme. The Honky Tonk Man and partner Greg Valentine sang this song at WrestleMania 6. 11.
What is Honky 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 Love?
Honka Honka Honky Love. Good to go. Good go.
Got that one, and I remember the Who is. But yeah, the Honky Tonk Man is mostly known for singing his own theme song on the Honky Tonk Man. I'm cool, I'm cocky, I'm bad. That whole theme song. But in 1990, he switched it up. It was a horrible, horrible song. But it's mostly remembered for being at WrestleMania 6. Him and Greg Valentine performed it as rhythm and blues during WrestleMania 6. Didn't get too far into the song, and some vendors selling merch interrupted the song. Of course, that ended up being the Bushwhackers. They came out, smashed all the guitars. Bushwhack marched up and down the ring and threw all the broken pieces of the guitar and all the merch out into the crowd. Nice fun moment during WrestleMania 6, but that is not the only reason I remember this. The big fun fact of that segment was the Honky Tonk Man, Jimmy Hart, and Greg the Hammer Valentine. They came down to the ring in a, was it a lease pink, but it was a convertible Cadillac. And the driver was sitting there smiling, bopping around, driving them down. And if you look closely, that driver was Diamond Dallas Page. I don't know how he wasn't under contract with WCW at the time. I thought he was, but for some reason, he slid in wearing a little chauffeur hat, and he made an appearance at WrestleMania 6. All this tied to that damn song, Honky Honka Honka Love, and made me get the question right. And this is how crazy my mind is. I think of all this stuff in like a split second, but honestly, that's how I remember this stuff. This guy's complaining about, this guy over here, you're going to hear him whining the entire trivia contest, the entire Jeopardy show, that this isn't 90s trivia, wham, wham, wham. The entire time, you're going to hear him complain. All right, so this is Wrestlers Who Could Sing 600.
What is If You Only Knew?
What? He's going to sing it too. Yeah, the host starts singing with me too. So that song, If You Only Knew, unless you had the Pile Driver album, you really didn't hear the song because it wasn't a wrestler's theme song or anything like that. This was a collaboration. It was one of these things where, you know, all the heels and all the faces sing the song. And it's pretty catchy. And for some reason, my old friend Barry that I was referring to earlier, we used to blast that song and sing it and try to listen and try to pick out the wrestlers. I think that's so-and-so singing that line. And picking out little parts of the wrestlers that are feuding, but they're in the same song. We had nothing better to do as kids back in the day, I guess. But we definitely listened to that song a million times. And I just remember that part of the song. So that, to me, that was an easy one. Layup.
That was not 90. I'm just going to keep going with the 800 now.
Going to the 800.
Mike Angelo, the Idol's cult classic Blank Everybody, was slightly changed and recorded by this man for the wrestling album. 11.
Roddy Piper for everybody.
Got it. And I didn't say who is, so the host let me off pretty easily there. He could have gave me a wrong answer. But yeah, back in the day, before the Pile Driver album, there was the wrestling album, which I have right over there. And there was all wrestlers singing these, not just their theme songs, but random songs. And most of you have seen this video of Vince McMahon in like a powdered blue tuxedo coming out the Slammies and singing a song. They made parodies of that. DX did in 20 years ago or 15 years ago. It's a famous video. You can put that into the Google machine and you'll see it. But on that album, Roddy Piper sang a song. And again, I'm very young listening to this. I was probably 9 maybe even younger. But there was a song, For Everybody, sung by Piper. And he was a heel back then. So to me and my buddies listening to it, we swear he was saying, "Fuck everybody." And oh my God, for little kids, hearing a wrestling heel swear at you in a song, it was badass. Obviously, he was just saying for everybody, but that made its mark on me, and I listened to that a million times. And literally hearing a heel wrestler sing F everybody was awesome, especially a Hot Rod at the time. So yeah, and if you don't and never heard the wrestling album, please go out and get it. It's a gem from the 80s because the Mean Gene, Vince McMahon, and Jesse Body Ventura, they commentate the entire album. So after Land of a Thousand Dances, all the wrestlers sing, Mean Gene comes in and he's just to do commentary into the next song. So it just plays like one long wrestling show. Let's see where I go now. Name the manager, 2000.
Danny Spivey, Mean Mark Callis. Lemon.
Who is Teddy Long?
Teddy Long.
Yeah, most of newer wrestling fans know Teddy Long as maybe a ref or, the most gangsta, stylish GM of SmackDown. He always made you go one-on-one with The Undertaker, right? But before that, he was a manager in WCW, and he always seemed to manage big guys. And Mark Calloway or Callis, The Undertaker, later to be. It was a pretty easy question, I thought. WCW days, especially during that era, are probably in my weak area. However, that one was, again, another layout.
What is name the year 2000?
Name the year 2000.
Name the year.
Crowning of the first WWF Intercontinental Champion. Lemon.
Oh, that'd be 1979.
Got that one. What year did the IC Championship debut? 1979, the year I was born. I also, not too long ago, did that video where we tried to list all the Intercontinental Champions in under 14 minutes, where I missed a couple. But yeah, Pat Patterson. But I obviously don't remember him as the IC champ. I just know the lore of that tournament in Brazil. Did it happen? Did it not? But it was in 1979. And I got a little "Let's Go" from my son in the audio there. Another Name the Year. This is any wrestling fan should know this. 1985. I don't even have to elaborate.
Sticking with that category for 800.
The first edition of Monday Night Raw.
Should have got. This was another easy one.
1993.
I remember the debut episode of Monday Night Raw. It was a magical night. I believe I was in the 8th grade. Back to Name the Manager.
Haku, Ravishing Rick Rude. Lemon.
Bobby Brain Heenan.
Who is?
Who is Bobby Brain Heenan?
Yes. Obviously, members of the Heenan family. Bobby the Brain Heenan always managed top-level heels, right? King Kong Bundy, Ravishing Rick Rude, King Haku, the Brain Busters, King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd. And anyone that Heenan was managing always got targeted towards Hogan. So if you were managed by Bobby Heenan, chances are you were going to work with Hogan and you were going to make money. So I bet you all these heels loved working with Bobby the Brain Heenan, not only because he's funny and an legendary manager, made their character better, but the paychecks probably kept rolling in. And eventually, it was an easy transition to become a good guy because all you had to do is dump Bobby Heenan and the crowd would love you. Easy writing. So what else we got? This guy's still complaining about the 90s questions. All right, SummerSlam facts, 800.
The Ultimate Warrior destroyed the Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam '88, but he was substituting for this person. Lemon.
Who is Brutus the Barber Beefcake? Again, anything Brutus Beefcake, I happen to remember. A lot of people confuse this with the parasailing accident. That happened years later because the parasailing accident happened and he missed his Intercontinental match against Mr. Perfect at 90. And that's when the Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich got put into that. This was a work. This was in 1988 SummerSlam, and they were looking to put the belt on the Warrior, but they wanted to do it in like a shocking way. So they didn't have a planned match, and they just used the Beefcake angle because they've been feuding Beefcake and Honky Tonk Man for almost a year at that point, right? They had a match at WrestleMania 4, so that's back in April. And then even earlier in 1988, this feud has been going on for a while, so it already gotten stale. So they had the Outlaw Ron Bass on TV beat the hell out of Beefcake with his whip. He cut up his forehead with spurs. They even put that a big X across the TV, like it's saying censored, as Beefcake was getting juiced up on his forehead with the spurs. All this made him miss his 1988 match against the Honky Tonk Man. So we subbed Honky Tonk Man. Give me somebody out. I don't care who it is. And all of a sudden the music hit. I can hear Superstar Billy Graham. I know familiar music, brother. And the Warrior, shot out of a cannon, comes down. Honky Tonk Man doesn't even get his jumpsuit off. Warrior, boom, boom, bam, shoulder block, splash, over, new IC champ. That long reign over in seconds. What else we got? Now, lawsuits. I didn't know how good I was going to do here.
WCW sued the WWF over the use of the big gold belt owned by Ric Flair, forcing Ric to use this other belt that was digitally altered on TV. 11.
What was the WWF tag title?
I struggled there, but I got it right. So, back in 1991, all of a sudden on TV, there was Bobby the Brain Heenan carrying the big WCW World Heavyweight title on WWF programming on Saturday morning. I was like, what is going on here? You know, this seemed like something was wrong. What was happening? Eventually, it started getting blurred out. And then the lawsuit kicked in, and they were like, dude, give us that belt back. You can't have that on TV. But since it was digitally blacked out anyway, you could almost put anything there as long as it was a belt. You couldn't see it. And I just remember seeing in some magazine pictures that Ric Flair be holding up that belt, but it was a tag belt, most notably at the 91 Survivor Series. But I also, when he would move it here and there, it would move past the blocker, and you'd see it, and I'd be like, that's a tag title. Can't fool 1991 Eric. He was young, but wasn't stupid. And again, thought more people would get that question. When I did get it, most people in the crowd were oohing and ahhing at this point. I started feeling a little on the special side, maybe, for almost like Rain Man here, but don't get on my case. What else is next?
This hip-hop-loving wrestler became a firefighter and EMT in Florida following his retirement from the ring.
And I don't know why I knew this, but I did.
Who is Scotty Too Hotty?
Yep, Scotty Too Hotty is a fireman. Don't know how I know this, but I did. I can't give you an explanation. So random question for 400.
Have separate entrance and exit music. 11.
Who's Mankind?
Mankind is right.
Now, I know this. From one, I watched it, lived it, right? Mankind would come out to this kind of more deranged piano banging kind of psycho sound music. And then he'd come out and beat the piss out of a jobber. Mandible claw, the guy would be foaming, but he would destroy jobbers. And then afterwards, this nice, peaceful piano music would play. And I'm like, that's different. That's not the music he came to the ring with. Now, this is way before that car crash music he got after he won the title back in 98 or whatever. This was early 96 when he debuted after WrestleMania 12, I believe. But yeah, he had different entrance music and different end of the match music. He references it in his book that I read a few times, Have a Nice Day, the first of all the wrestling books. But that stuck out to me as well. Another one, random for 800. Thought this was a gimme. Maybe I was just the first to buzz in. But Brock Lesnar. Who else would be in a WWE game, UFC, and NFL? Easy. What's here? Lawsuit 800.
WWF for $26.7 million after being paralyzed taking this move from Marty Jannetty. 11.
What is the Rocket Dropper?
Rocker Dropper. Now, this case has been talked about forever. If you watch Dark Side of the Ring, some of you might have seen that. They talked about this kind of spiral Marty Jannetty's career because, again, just a move they do all the time. It's a very dangerous move. It's like a modified Famouser that Billy Gunn's finisher used to be, but a little different. But, yeah, Marty Jannetty cracked the guy. I don't know. There's all different versions. He didn't know how to take it. He didn't do it right, whatever. Marty was probably hungover. I don't know these stories. I don't want to make rumors. I don't know Marty Jannetty personally. I don't know if he was hungover or not. I'm just joking. But anyway, he did cause the guy to be paralyzed, and it was a huge lawsuit. Vince had to reach deep into his pockets and pay this lawsuit. It's well documented. They talk about it a lot on that podcast. Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. If you ever listen to that, they do a good explanation of this lawsuit. But again, I've heard about it so many times, it just seared into the old noggin. What else we got?
Lawsuits for 2000. Lawsuits for two. During the steroid trials of 1994, if Vince McMahon had been sentenced to prison time, this man would head the WWF until Vince's return. Lemon.
Who's Jerry Jarrett?
Jarrett is right.
All right, so for this question, who would have taken over the WWE if Vince went to jail back in 1994? For those that don't know, there was that big steroid scandal. This dated back from 92, wrapped up in 94. Vince almost went to jail. It was real. And who was going to run the WWE while he was away? You would think it would be the inner works. Pat Patterson, Bruce Pritchard, Linda, Gorilla Monsoon might have been a little old, but yeah, even Gorilla Monsoon, somebody, a collective. But no, apparently the rumor is that Jeff Jarrett's father, Jerry Jarrett, would have assumed control of the WWE while Vince served his sentence. Obviously, Jerry Jarrett, he had his own territories, his own promotions. So he's not foreign to the business. He knows it. Just, I can't imagine somebody with that those southern roots taking over the Northeast, the WWF. I don't know if it would have worked. Maybe with that, with the Briscoes, the Pritchards, and the Monsoons, and Sergeant Slaughter, and Pat Patterson, all them, that Blackjack Lanza, all those guys that were behind the scenes probably would have been able to steer the ship without Vince for a little while. But it never had to happen, so I don't know why I just knew that. So let's keep going.
Potpourri 1200. Potpourri for 12. The only team to win the tag team championship in WWE, WCW, the NWA, IWGP,
I mean, who's just ECW and TNA, that's
Who is the Dudley Boys?
the Dudley Boys, right? Who else would have won all those belts? I felt that was pretty easy. I guess Steiner's you could have thought for a second, but that's that. I thought there was some more.
Lemon.
Who is the Dudley Boys?
I'm gonna look at this for a second. So that's just a sample. That's all I have. I didn't want to play the entire video. I took out about 7 minutes of the questions that I got correct. There are a whole bunch more that I'm not going to get to because we're already over a half hour on the old 8-bit Generation X. This is the longest episode I've had so far. But those are just the highlights of the Jeopardy game. Some of the questions I got right. Please, if you played along, put into the comments. Tell me what you would have gotten right. I usually finish all my videos with a old school video game. I was thinking about firing up an old favorite of mine, Castlevania, but since this video is already north of a half an hour, I'm thinking we can just play some video games another time. I just want to show you one little relic, an artifact I brought back for me from 90s Con. One of the merch tables, I was able to pick up this baby. Ooh, be easy. 1997 version of Thumb Wrestlers. Still in the package, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Owen Hart. This feud was very important during the early days of the Attitude Era, 1997, right? Obviously, at SummerSlam, Owen Hart dropped Austin on his neck. That could have went. We almost didn't have Stone Cold Steve Austin launching us into the 2000s and all that. That whole feud with Vince almost never happened. Owen, inverted pile driver, boom, crush his neck, all over the IC title. But that feud is right here, a Jack's Pacific thumb wrestler. And as I look closer, they're just the same as the ones from the 80s, but obviously 12 years later than the original run. I remember seeing these out. Wasn't at the time collecting figures. I was 18. I was trying to play with girls and not action figures at the time. But no, I got an awesome set, you know, and it's going to go up along my wall with my Jack Pacifics that I still have in a box. And yeah, amazing find, and I'm very fortunate to have it. All right, next time we'll talk a little bit more of what's new in the world of wrestling. We'll definitely get to an old school video game. I think Saturday night, the Stankster will be available to come do some videos. I already have some in the bag with him as well, so I can upload. All right, till next time, we'll see you then.